We just had our first finals of the season. I have to say, I love this season. This meta is so fun to watch, but some of our big teams, mostly our LAN teams, are actually struggling the worst. We had some pop-offs. Pete won on NA, but mostly across the board, it was our LAN teams that weren't dominating. And I want to talk about why that might be and why this meta is so fun to watch right now. We also have Frodoxy, our off-spawn king, going down 5-0 off-spawn to Tayson, potentially giving up his crown. But why am I not worried about these LAN teams underperforming only 3 weeks out from LAN? There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Oh boy, we have a lot to cover. This finals on EU and NA were two of the most fun finals I've watched in a really long time. And yes, we have globals a few weeks away, so everything feels quite intense because it's building up to globals, but the actual finals itself were insane. And not just the ending on NA, which I will get to, but just the overall vibe of this meta and how the teams are playing was really fun to watch. And mostly because there just wasn't as much trading. Now, I wouldn't get too excited about this. I'm hoping it's a factor of the meta, but mostly I think it's a factor of the fact that teams are either in globals, which means that they're locked in practicing for globals, but the teams around them, most of which aren't in globals, so they can't really practice their surge trait routes with them, or teams that aren't qual to globals only have a few weeks of trios anyway, and then they're switching up and focusing on duos. So it's kind of reduced how much trading is going on because teams just aren't as locked in right now. And Queasy replied to my tweet saying, they said, because everyone's trolling, the people that did good were trading. And yes, he was right. The teams that did the best on leaderboard mostly were teams that were trading. But for the most part, the finals themselves were super fun to watch. And if these are the finals we have leading up to globals, it's going to be extremely fun to watch. Let's go through both regions leaderboards now. I'll kick off on EU before I get to the insanity that was NA, because EU was still extremely fun to watch. We had mostly non-LAN qualified teams placing at the top of EU. We had Comeback, Shark, and Blaha coming in first on 394 points, playing insane, proving that they should have been in grand finals again. They came second 3 times in LCQ, missing out on the qual, and then now they're still dominating. A 5 elim second, 2 elim 7th, 6 elim win, 8 elim second, 6 elim win, and a 2 elim 6. They had an average placement of 3rd in a 6-game finals for a team that didn't even make it, not only to LAN, didn't even make it to grand finals. Just insane performance. Again, super sad to see what happened to them last season, but they're bouncing back, they're dominating. I'm sure all 3 of these players are going to pop off in duos. Then we had Sky, Scroll, and Sanguild. Again, 3 really top tier players who also didn't make it to LAN. Then Della, Kira, and Bevies, same thing. 3 amazing players didn't make it to LAN. There was quite a bit of a drop down though. If you notice, Sanguild and Comeback were the 2 teams right at the very top. It came right down to the wire, even with Sky, Scroll, and Sanguild popping off throughout the whole tournament. They got an 18th place in their last game, which is what dropped them down. Comeback's team getting a 6th place is what let them jump up and overtake them and then take the win. But it was a 115-point drop down to Della in 3rd. And all 3 of these teams aren't in LAN. So then we start seeing our LAN teams closer towards that like 5th to 10th position. We have iDrop, Hari, and Cammy in 4th overall, tied on 260 points. So they lost the tiebreak because they didn't get a win, and Della's team did. So they did really well. Then we had Vidil, Chap, and Mr. Savage. Now, again, this is a LAN team with an asterisk. Vidil filling in for Rezon, playing extremely well. This team played super aggressive though. They obviously aren't contested because Coyote, the team that's contesting them, at least for now, isn't playing on EU, obviously. But they played really well. They played ultra aggressive on that north to northeast side of the map, pushing a whole bunch of fights. They were extremely fun to watch. They got a 13 elim 3rd and an 11 elim 4th. 2 double-digit games. It was sick, but it is worth pointing out, and again, you can do this information as you will, Coyote is still marked as dropping on Mr. Savage on the globals map, but Coyote's team on Asia in finals has started dropping Canyon. And if you remember my recent videos, I talked about the fact that I couldn't find a translator to actually explain what the clips were saying, but there were rumors that Coyote was talking on stream about switching and landing on Veno. Now, again, they haven't marked the drop map, but why would you be dropping Canyon in the weeks leading up to globals? You've talked about potentially going there for globals, but then you're still dropping on Savage. I think at this point, it's fair to say, I'm guessing Savage, Chap, and Rezon should be uncontested at globals, at least for now. We'll see. Coyote's team might not like Canyon. They might not play well there, and they might come back. But the fact they've talked about going there, and I couldn't figure out where those clips were from, and now that they're going there in Asia finals, That's a lot of evidence. Now, we have Akira, Skyjump, and Werix in 6th. Again, non-LAN team. Then Vanya, Pixie, Marius in 7th. They were getting stuck in a lot of mid-game aggressive fights out of OXR. Like I said, it was really weird watching a bunch of the LAN qualified teams playing ultra aggressive, just running it down on people. We had Marius's team, Savage's team, and Queasy's team all playing ultra aggressive in that kind of like northwestern side of the map. That whole western edge was just chaos of constant fighting. It was the teams on the eastern edge that were trading a lot more. And those are the 3 teams that did really, really well. Bevy's team, Sangil's team, and Blaha's team, all the top 3 teams, and Cammy's team, top 4, a lot of them were doing pretty heavy trading coming into this. So it does still seem like surge trading is going to be the most consistent way to place well and do well in the current meta. Just for whatever reason, a lot of the LAN qualified teams aren't getting a trade, and they're just running it down. Now, Chris, Tayson, and Chicho in 8th place overall. Kind of tells you how the off spawn went against Feroxy, but it doesn't even tell the whole story. Tayson's team didn't do as well as I was hoping they would when they made it off spawn 6 games out of 6. Yes, you heard that correctly. Feroxy, the off spawn king himself, did not take down Tayson a single time. They got 5-0'd. Now, Feroxy didn't load into one of the games, so it wasn't 6 games. But Chris, Tayson, and Chicho are either the final bosses of off-spawn fighting or Feroxy had a rough day. Now, again, a lot of people are going to say, oh, Feroxy's a fraud. His reputation isn't real. Everyone said he's so good and he's not that good. Again, I think a lot of people are forgetting Feroxy has proven his reputation this year. Even in the last 2 seasons. So 2 seasons ago, took down Veno off spawn so consistently that Veno gave them the best drop on the map, arguably without a LAN spot. They came 2nd. Then next season, Mr. Savage tried to contest in the start of the season, also got taken down and left the drop spot. They've beaten out 2 LAN qualified teams on spawn in the last 2 seasons. So I think a lot of people seem to be forgetting that when they're talking about Feroxy, but I'm not going to try and pretend that Feroxy didn't get absolutely destroyed today. It was not a good look for Feroxy. So I'm hoping he was having an off day. I'm hoping something was wrong. And I'm hoping they look back in and start looking good for globals, because I don't want globals to be a straight stomp. But maybe Tayson's just that good off spawn. We have seen Tayson spawn fight a little bit at Crime City a couple of seasons ago. Didn't look too hot, but Crime City was a pretty awkward, pretty messy off spawn. This one was pretty much a straight 50-50. These teams were dropping in quick, and that's usually what rewards Feroxy. Peterbot said that he thinks he was going to beat Feroxy in a prolonged fight, but in a 50-50, Feroxy would have the edge. But Tayson apparently is the king of 50-50. Their team absolutely destroyed Feroxy. It is worth mentioning Feroxy's team made several tweets around how loot works getting it out of chests. If you watch Feroxy off spawn, you'll notice they did have a lot of issues where sometimes they had the best drop, they got down to the chest first, opened it, and didn't get the loot. Now, Feroxy wasn't implying that this was like a macro or that, Tayson's team was cheating in any way. I think Chino was in a tweet, but he's since deleted that. But Feroxy made a suggestion that has been brought back conversation from years ago from a pro way back in the day, Kaiser. If you guys followed original EU, you know Kaiser. He made a tweet 5 years ago in 2020 where he said, if you open the chest, you should get the loot inside. And Feroxy replied again saying, make chests work like black market cases. Whoever opens should get the gun. And this isn't honestly the worst idea. It basically implies that if someone has better ping, or in the case of a lot of pros, a macro, they won't get the gun just because they got down after you and then grabbed it as the chest opened. If you start opening the chest first, if you have the best drop, which is where most of the skill is involved, you get the gun, rather than just the ability to suck the loot out of the air, even though you didn't open the chest. And I don't absolutely hate this suggestion. I wonder if there are some drawbacks in it. I don't think pubs and ranked really matters that much, but competitively, it would help a lot of the accusations and the expectation that pretty much every pro is macroing at this point, because it kind of feels like you have to if you want to be on an even playing field, and this would fix that. So again, I'm not going to try and chalk up the off-spawn fights if Feroxy's team just didn't get the guns out of the chest. I don't think they are as well. I think that would have helped the situation. Obviously, a couple times there, if they got the gun, the enemy team didn't, they would have done better. But there's more to spawn fighting than just getting the gun out of the chest, especially at this drop spot. This drop spot doesn't have to be a straight 50-50. So it's a decent suggestion, but I did at least want to put it out there as Feroxy did have some explanations as to why they didn't do as well off spawn. Outside of this, I do want to talk about the other LAN qualified teams as well. We had Vico, Veno, Flixie coming in 11th overall. They had a bit of a messy kind of game plan. They were taking a lot of aggressive mid-game fights. They got keyed by Tayson's team one game. The next game, they keyed Tayson, ended up getting cleaned up again. They were kind of involved in that western part of the map where things were just getting super aggro. We did get to watch one of the best 3v3 fights I've watched in a minute, and it was up against Vanya, Pixie, Marius, 2 LAN qual teams going at it. And Vanya, Pixie, Marius, so far, their game strategy throughout the year has been flawless early and mid games, a lot of trading, making it through safely, and then playing phenomenal end games. We haven't got to see them fight all that much except for end games, but we know that Pixie and Marius are two of the best fighters in the world, and now with eyes on Peterbot versus Marius over at OXR, people are wondering how good this team is fighting, and I want to show you this clip because it was an incredible mid-game 3v3 against one of the best mid-game fighting teams on EU. Meanwhile, Vanya, Pixie, Marius take an aggressive fight. Bro, are we done with Surge trading? What's happening? I'm not mad about it, but like, what is going on? Why is Veno fighting Pixie? How did we get to Supernova? How have we gone from Canyon to Supernova to fight Pixie? What the is happening? Again, not mad about it, just very confused. Oh, Veno gets hit hard. Oh, Marius. Oh, Flixie. Moving right now. Can he phase in? Doesn't go for it. Tries to bait it. Now he goes for the ram phase in. Takes the stand. Puts down a cone. This is a great fight right now. This is, honestly putting a lot of gas right now on Pixie, Marius, and Vanya's mid-game fighting ability. This team has been known as, like, the Surge Trade final boss. Surge trade their whole early and mid-game and then play flawless endgame. So a lot of people questioning how good their fighting still is. Marius goes in the box. Gets the stare on his head, though. This is looking pretty bad, though. The pressure's coming out, but never mind. Marius starts getting active. Gets hit hard, though. Drops down. Good ramp on the head to block it off. This is a fantastic mid-game fight. Jeez. Putting on a show right now. Oh, Pixie opens it up onto Flixie. Damn. It's a 3v2 now. Vico, Veno, but Veno gets hit hard by Marius. Takes the wall as well. Jeez. Marius and Pixie doing what a lot of people know they can do best. Usually in solos, you see this level of aggression from Marius and Pixie, though. Proven they can do it in trios, too. Vanya takes down Veno, and Vico goes down. Two of our LAN teams collide, and Marius, Vanya, Pixie stand strong and take down Veno. A very, very rough tournament so far for Vico, Veno, Flixie. Jeez. It is because of some of these mid-game fights that I think Vico, Veno, and Flixie didn't do as well. But again, there was a lot of LAN teams that struggled today, and I'm going to chalk up most of it to the fact that they just don't have the Surge trading options down right now. And again, it kind of sucks we have to talk about this, but that is just the meta. And a lot of these teams that went down, a lot of the mid-game fights, I think they were fighting poorly. It was just absolute chaos on the west side of the map. There was so many third parties, so much craziness going on. I think the crash pad and launch pad meta is going to hurt Surge trading a lot in a good way. I like that because crash pads especially give no visual audio and basically no audio cue. You can Fizzberry crash pad on top of someone's surge base, catch them off guard, and just destroy them, which is what happened to a lot of these teams. And because there's so much mobility to get around the map so quickly with all of these Fizzberry high pads, the third-party potential is incredible. And that is what messed up a lot of these teams. Pickstar Medamus came in 13th, not a terrible performance from them. Then we had Focus's team, so they came in 16th overall out of Shogun. Again, not the greatest performance, but they were stuck in that whole west side fighting as well. You're kind of noticing all the teams dropping on that northwest to west side of the map, all doing quite poorly. One of which, Swizzy, Queasy, and Mustache in 23rd. Now, I had this team picked as one of the top two teams coming into Globals alongside Poyo with uncontested Hive. It's a solid drop. It's a mythic drop. They're a phenomenal team, and I thought they were going to do better, but again, you saw Queasy's response to my tweet. He's just chalking it up to not having surge options as well. I think when it comes to Globals, this won't be a huge issue, especially with the fact that Kanata's team is dropping mid-map at Globals, and I think Queasy is going to do a lot of their surge trading with this team. Both Queasy and Kanata are coached by Raz. I'm sure it's going to be in their game plan to look for teams to trade around them, and they're both going to be willing to do that. Craze's team, who was taking the Hive on NA, traded pretty much every game with Kanata, and they had a phenomenal match history, which I'll talk about a bit on NA. So I'm not super worried about this team. They did also get landed on one game by Savage with an insane play, just jumping up and taking them down based off a crash pad. So it was a super exciting finals to watch across the board. I was expecting the LAN teams to do a little bit better, but I'm not super worried about their performance coming into Globals. But if they don't start to figure out a game plan, it's going to be a little bit rough because there's going to be almost no scrims or practice before Global. So teams are going to have to figure it out on the fly, and some teams are doing that better than others. They're taking their fights in mid-game and adapting. Some teams are kind of struggling. Now, moving on over to NA, we had one of the most exciting tournaments I've seen in a minute, and you know, whenever there's excitement, it's going to come down to Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot. They closed it out in first on 462 points and 0 wins. If you look at second place, different story. Curve, Tyler, and Craze, a non-LAN qualified trio, a brand new trio that formed just this season, in second on 423, 6 matches, winning 3 of them. and they had a second place and a sixth place. Going into game number 5, they had a first, second, and first. 3 of those with double-digit elims. Just insane performance. So how are you playing that well and you lose the lead? Of course, Peterbot. Peterbot's team ended up keying them in game number 5, making them get a 0 elim 21st, making sure they did it in game 5, not game 6, to try to catch them off guard. So other than the games when Peterbot keyed them, their performances were insane. But Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot were also racking up elims. 12 elim 5th, 13 elim 2nd, 12 elim 7th, 11 elim 4th, 6 elim 7th, and a 14 elim 2nd. So many elims. They had 68 eliminations in 6 games of a final. So again, if anyone was worried about Pete's team not performing out of a non-mythic drop, doing absolutely phenomenal from OXR. Now, they weren't really contested like they were supposed to be from the Frenchies, Akira, Kurama, and Lixium. They ended up dropping at OXR like one of the games. They kind of dropped around them a few games. They didn't really have a game plan. It looks like they were kind of just playing the tournament, dropping a bunch of different drop spots, so they weren't really contested. So we got to see how good Pete would perform with uncontested OXR, and it is looking very, very solid. Now, it's worth mentioning Curve, Tyler, and Craze. Again, they've locked down the Hive because, you know, Swizzy has the Hive locked down at Globals. None of the land qualified teams on NA are going to want to drop there. So it's pretty much a PY that's going to the next best team that isn't qualified for land. And this team on paper is phenomenal. I didn't think they'd do this well, though. But again, recipe for their success, they would base up early, trade a lot of Surge against Kanata, then they would rotate. Now, their end games were phenomenal, but it does show the value of that drop spot and why I'm not too worried for Queasy's performance coming into LAN. I think if Queasy can trade Surge with Kanata's team in the same way Craze has, they will do much, much better. But I do want to give full credit to Curve, Tyler, and Craze. They played phenomenal. Even in that game 6, when Pete's team was going to hunt them down, they changed up their whole strategy. They switched everything up, and they still got a 6th place. They made it a super exciting tournament. And if you look at the leaderboard, it was a 2-horse race, an over 100-point drop down the leaderboard to G Money, Josh, and Rise. Again, a non-land qualified team. So all top 3 on EU and 2 of the top 3 on NA, not land qualified teams. It's worth mentioning, as far as I'm aware, the only region that was won by a land qualified team was OCE and NA. That's it. All other 5 other regions were won by non-land qual teams. So I don't know if this is a factor of maybe, especially on the small regions, the teams that have qualled land are going more low-key drops because they want to practice their drop for globals. They're not going to try and lock down mythic drops they know they're not going to get against EU and NA teams. But it's interesting to point out that I don't know whether it's like they've let their foot off the gas or they're trying new things, but I did expect, you know, the best teams on the regions to show up big, and that hasn't really happened. We have a lot more of them in the top 10. We have Clicks, Higgs, and Iomzo in their favorite position, 4th, 1 point behind G Money. So Clicks' team did play really solid, very consistent match history, only getting 1 game outside the top 10. They had an average placement of 6th, so they were absolute placement warriors. They did have a 10 elim 6th and a 9 elim 4th as well. Their match history is really solid. Their points make it look like they had a much worse tournament than they did. It's just because Curve and Ritual's team did so extremely well. We had Reek, Cooper, and Curly in 5th on 293. Ages, Acorn, Poyo. Now, I was a bit disappointed in this performance. They did just have a few issues. They went down a couple times on rotating zones. They got caught in a couple scuffles. There was one game, and again, this is just too fitting. We had Pete's team set up on one side of Foxy Floodgate, Poyo on the other. I'll get my editor to put the image up on the screen. Like, this is just image right here is like absolute peak cinema. And then we managed to have Pete make this play onto Poyo. So a Minish lands on the high ground to try and get their Surge. Acorn crash pads off, I think by accident. Pete recognizes it as soon as zone pulls. This is their chance. They don't pull zone. No way. We land on their old hide. Beams on the Ages. That's the damage we need. We're going to go for it. The Fizzberry comes out. The crash pad comes out. Pete onto Poyo. Pete lands 86 tag on a Poyo. Drops down. Another pump shot. Pete does the damage, but Cold gets the finish. Oh, Cold takes down Acorn. His ex-teammate, bro. Pete versus Poyo replays selling as always. And it's Ages as a solo. Pete takes down Poyo and Acorn. And Ages now has to solo clutch. This endgame is already shaping up to be a big one, bro. Plays like that are pretty unfortunate. It's going to come down to awareness again. I think teams are going to get used to adapting to the fact that players can just silently crash pad on their head and make insane plays. The fact that it was Pete on Napoyo just makes it all the sweeter. But even outside of a couple of these plays, I was expecting more from Acorn's team. They do get the exotic bunker very regularly. They got double spaz twice in this tournament. They have insane loot with the jump medallion. They have the mythic AR every game. I am hoping to see this team step up, especially coming into globals. I don't know if they've been playing too much over the last couple weeks, so I guess we'll see them kind of adapting to the new season meta as it progresses. I'm not super concerned for this team, but again, I did want to expect a little bit more. I am worried for a lot of our mythic teams, though. I will point this out. As of me recording this video, Pete has now gone on to Twitter to post this video. Now, this audio doesn't really matter. I'll let it play in the background, and at first you might be confused. Is Pete exposing a bug where like the queen's health disappears? What I believe is happening here is Pete is trying to let it leak to different players around the world that if you land near a mythic POI, not in the mythic POI, you can take down the queen. You're not going to get the loot, but you are going to get the A rank up. And by getting that A rank up, you are now going to get priority on the bunkers. Now, why would Pete want to help teams around him? Well, it's because Pete doesn't get A rank up on his bunker unless he does this to the hive nearby, but it means that all the mythic teams around him won't get the bunker anymore. He is basically reducing the amount of loot the best teams are getting and giving a higher chance for other teams to take those bunkers. Now, this is pretty insane from Peterbot. It basically confirms that he will not be going a mythic drop. He is locked in on the OXR. Otherwise, there is no way he would leak this, because this does very much hurt the mythic teams when it comes into land. So Poyo's team, for example, if a team nearby on the mountain wants to start doing this to Poyo, they'll get A rank up, which means they can take priority on the bunker that spawns over towards ranges, things like that. So they're basically, Pete's kind of making this information known to deny the exotic loot from the mythic teams that already have a big loot advantage, which is kind of crazy. Maybe I'm misinterpreting. I could be totally wrong. I'm pretty sure that was the purpose of this tweet. That's why he didn't give a caption. It was just like, hey, do this information as you will. But that does have me a little bit worried for these teams. I still think the best teams at the mythic POIs will still control the boss, get the A rank up, and then if they have to fight for the bunker, I'm sure a lot of them will be willing. But I was a bit disappointed with Poyo getting double pump 2 games. I wanted to see them get a crazy pop-off game. They got a 12 elim 4th, but we'll see how they go. We had Rapid, Kanata, Bolts. Again, another land team. 7th place, not bad, but I really do want to see Kanata do even better coming into the globals. We had King, our South American trio, getting 211 points in 8th. And then as far as our rest of our land teams on NA, unfortunately, we have to scroll quite far down. Muzz, Shadow, and Sphinx. They only played 3 games, though. Sphinx started to have power issues, so I guess that is what it is. Can't really look too much into that. But then Visuals, Braids, and Diminished in 30th place, playing 6 matches and getting 12 points. This is a very underrated team coming into LAN, but I'm super surprised to see this performance from them. Uncontested at Foxy Floodgate. The drop, they've been going literally all chapter. They know it to a T. I am honestly not really sure what happened to them in this finals. I just didn't really see anything from them. They just seemed to go down in the mid to early, like not even early end game. Their highest placement was an 18th. They went down 18th 3 times and 19th once. So very consistent, unfortunately making it not to endgame. That's 22-minute games, by the way, to then get almost 0 placement. 0 placement points gained in the entire tournament is disastrous. I really want to see them do better because I absolutely love this team and they were one of my sleeper picks coming into globals. They are still uncontested on the globals drop map and I'm hoping it stays that way, and I'm hoping they figure out what their plan is for this meta. Speaking of the global map update, we did only have one thing to change. We have one of our Asian teams. We have Merrim's team switching from their drop on the South split to now contest Arc School and Salco at Shining. So they've now gone from having an uncontested split, which is honestly a very weak split, to now contesting a POI. That is the only change. Arc's team is now contested, which means every single NA West qualified team is now contested, which is a bit unfortunate for NA West chances, but we got to see now if someone maybe tries to lock down that split. Maybe one of the teams triple con at mid-map or Utopia would rather their chance on a bad split rather than being triple con, but that is the only drop spot change for now. Again, I've still got eyes on Kyoto's team to potentially start conning Venno, but that hasn't happened yet.